This video was made in sponsorship with Hear Well, Be Well Clinics. Compassionate, trustworthy, and innovative. Check them out. Hi, Jo-Ann. Thank you so much for joining me on an episode of Hear Me Out. How are you today?
I'm good, April. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for this conversation. So I like to start off by asking what your connection to hearing loss is, if you have one.
It's deaf culture, so I was raised, I'm bilingual, so I communicate via sign language and English. But my work has primarily been fueled by lack of accessibility, education and training, and seeing, where we were to where we are now to where we can go in the future. So that's my connection. It's really the communication piece.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I really like that aspect. I haven't had the chance to interview someone yet who's the child of a deaf parent. I myself have hearing loss and I have a daughter, so I'm the reverse. So I think that's really fascinating. And I think that's wonderful that you kind of you do it for work to help make that space more accessible and inclusive. And that's really beautiful. So on that topic, let's dive into the Wavefront Centre and what that is all about. And if you can just let everyone know what that is.
Sure. So Wavefront Center is, first of all, we've been around for almost 70 years. We're coming up to our anniversary next year for our big 70th. It is a not-for-profit organization, primarily based out of BC in Vancouver and has several offices throughout Vancouver. However, some of our programs are provided nationally and accessibility services, and that's where I come from. That is one of them. And we do a lot of research. So we have a research department that works across Canada. So gathering stats and research and really using that research to advise advancements in all different areas related to hearing loss.
I, that's phenomenal. That's really fantastic. And I think that's incredible. 70 years. That's absolutely amazing. And that is still able to be going. I know it's hard time right now for nonprofits, and that's really incredible. So let's dive into a little bit more about the services. I know you mentioned a couple and the programs. So based in BC, but offer them nationally. So let's talk
Yeah,
a little bit more about that.
sure. So based in BC, I'll go back a little bit to some of the services that we provide. And I know that you mentioned that we're not for profit, which we are. However, with many not for profits these days, there's the introduction of a social enterprise component to it. And that's where our audiology program is defined under our accessibility services. We're defined under that and selling communication devices like for fire safety. And I can talk a little bit more about that, or hearing your baby cry, all kinds of different products that are available to really bridge the gap for safety in the home. And then we take that beyond the home into the community. So with our social service enterprise, that's where we do generate revenue, and the revenue that's generated is poured right back into our community programs because, as you mentioned, being not for profit, government doesn't ever provide 100% funding for those programs, and depending on the need of those programs. And if we need to expand those programs and we're limited to certain funding, then we're able to do that through the work that we do. And the work that we do with accessibility consulting is everything under one umbrella, working towards community and business. And business can be theaters, conferences, events, anywhere where there's communication involved. And so we provide services such as sign language services, interpreting, captioning services, and then we have our technology piece. And our technology, right now, we're working with a really exciting new development in technology. But technology, the nice thing about being who we are, we're not married to one manufacturer. So even with our hearing aids, we work with all manufacturers. And same with our technology, it's all manufacturers. And then what we do when there's a new piece of technology out there, something that might not be new, but maybe not utilized in a public facility or public space, then we work directly with our community. So we test with our community, we get feedback, we work with the event planner, we get feedback in order to ensure that it meets the needs of our community members before we go out. And then we work with the venue. So we get out there, we work with the venue, we install the system with them, we get the community involved. So it's a whole program and a process, because we were mentioning earlier, you can put in technology, but without the training from the events perspective or the community not knowing that it's even available, then what is the point? So we help with the implementation and the marketing that goes along with it.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you find that one of the roadblocks, I guess within Canada, is the lack of awareness for all of these incredible pieces of technology? Because I mean, I've only been a part of the hearing loss community for about 8 years, and I'm still learning so much about it. But I find that it's kind of really hard to discover these resources that are out there sometimes. And I'm just curious, do you face a lot of roadblocks within just getting it out there within Canada, or like how do you see that?
I see that there's definitely more interest. Diversity and inclusion is a conversation that's happening. I definitely see a little bit of both. You'll get places that are really interested for many reasons, and maybe it's because they have a personal connection, and so they strive to make sure that their place is accessible to people with hearing loss. And in those situations, it's really easy to get in the door, right? And then the other aspect is the education, the training, which we do, but we can't do it alone. We need community. We need community to ask for, what do you have, to make your facility more accessible? Do you have an audio assistive listening device? From previous work, and I'll give you an example. So it's a little bit of an offshoot, but it lends the same message. There was a time when we were going into hospitals and educating, like a new mom having a baby. How does the mom know the baby's crying? And that could create anxiety, etc. And so there are products that go into hospitals, and it helps a new mom hear the baby crying. And staying in a hotel, how does somebody know if the fire alarm or room service, somebody's knocking at the door? And so we were working with hospitals and hotels at this time. And the most common thing I would hear would be, oh, nobody ever asked for that. Oh, no, we don't have anybody with hearing loss coming here. And so it's kind of like that chicken and the egg, like what happens first, right? Because business is saying, oh, well, nobody's ever asking for anything. So no, I don't think that there's a need there. But there is a need there. So that's where we're really trying to close that gap, because we need everybody. We need everybody at the table, right? So when a facility becomes accessible, let's celebrate it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let our community members know, let's celebrate it, get out there, use it. And depending on what kind of a system it is, if you don't have that direct connection when you're picking up a system, like an audio system, to returning it, and providing that feedback, then, send out a message, send something out to the venue to let them know that, my experience was great. I really enjoyed the live theater moment, or whatever
That's
it is, because it pertains to everything.
yeah, and that's such a good point. Like a lot of businesses don't know that they need it because it's as someone with hearing loss, like I've worked really hard on my own advocacy to speak up when I need something. And it's hard when you don't feel like you can speak up in certain situations. And a previous guest I had on mentioned too, like it's so much easier if you go and just say, this is what I need. But it's so hard sometimes to bridge that gap, to make that step. And that's really great that you're, creating that opportunity to help more people get to that point and speaking to those businesses for people. And it's very interesting to me when I hear that of companies, oh, I've never been asked that. It's like, well, don't wait to be asked,
Exactly.
be ahead of the game. Like just, you never know who you're going to encounter, whether it be employees or
Exactly.
someone you're servicing. So
You
that's
know
very
what I
interesting.
always say is, so we're striving to make Canada a more accessible country for everybody, right? Um, and when and when we hear things like, "Oh, nobody ever asks," but my analogy is, we don't count how many people are benefiting from a ramp. Like, we don't have a ticker, and we're not counting those people. And that's universal design, right? So that ranges from everybody using a stroller to, pushing a buggy to somebody using a mobility device. But let's start the conversation. It's been started for years. We do have an aging demographic, so that's going to make a difference, and that's going to be more of a push, I believe. But I do really think things are changing, technology is changing. Um, in the past, if it was a movie theater, let's say, and they had assistive listening devices, we're sort of changing that to audio accessibility as our preferred terminology. It means the same thing, but there's such a breadth of different pieces of technology out there.
There's a lot of technology coming out to the market too, which is exciting. And it does open a lot of doors for the conversations, which we need to start to get to that point. So it is quite exciting.
It is, and it's the newer technology coming out is not dependent on somebody picking up a special device. Um, I'd like to share with you one of the products
Yeah.
that we've been experimenting with. It uses Bluetooth
Okay.
for Wi-Fi. It's called BetEar, and it's designed specifically for people with hearing loss. That's how they started their company. But it's a really good example of universal design because anybody can benefit from it. And so how it works is, it like all assistive products, they plug into the microphone system, so your audio system. And then it's going to take that audio through the microphones and it's going to stream it out of this transmitter that just looks
Yeah.
like a transmitter. It's just this big. I just wanted to show you. It's just a,
Cool.
a little box. And then what happens is that this transmitter receives that sound. It goes through Wi-Fi, and then it goes to your smartphone. So it
That's
goes
so
to
cool.
the individual smartphone and it works with an app. And so with the app, you stream through Bluetooth through your hearing aids or your cochlear implant. And what I love mostly about this is there's not a learning curve for people who use their smartphones and Bluetooth to stream music or to talk on the phone. They already know how to use it. And so you're using your own device. You don't need to stop at customer service to pick up a device. You bring your own, you know how to use it. You sit wherever you want to. and you're able to stream sound through your smartphone and right through your hearing aids. And so we're going to be at one of your events coming soon, and we're going to have it there so people can listen and try and experiment. Um, we've been we've
Yes.
been testing it with many outdoor live events.
Ooh, okay. I was actually at a DJ Demers show and he had it there and it was so awesome to see people using it. I didn't quite need it where I was sitting, but it was so cool because he was talking to the audience about it and I was like, that is so fascinating and really, really cool to see. And so great that you don't have to purchase another thing. Like you use your own device. And like you said, there's no learning curve there. So that's really wonderful.
Yeah, it's really
Um,
exciting.
with all of these services and things, do you find that it's hard to bridge the gap between like educating audiologists who are directly seeing people with hearing loss on a daily basis, getting them to kind of share these services? Do you find it hard to get them on board? I know you mentioned there's like an audiology aspect to the Wavefront Center, but do you find that it's hard to get them to want to help promote all of these other wonderful services and programs?
I think um, I think there's a number of ways to do that. And I think it's really going to depend on the clinic. I think it's
True.
going to depend on the individuals in the clinic. Most hearing aids, when we're talking about 85% or more, will have Bluetooth
Right.
compatibility already built in. So that's a great point. From somebody visiting the clinic to experiencing one-to-one communication or small group setting communication to safety in the home and then branching out into community. Um, One way that we hope to increase awareness is through their publications. Audiologists are they're busy, and hearing aid technology is changing,
Yeah.
so quickly, and keeping up with the hearing aid technology and then keeping up with what's out there in community, because there's all kinds of different audio
Yeah.
systems available in community. You have your counter communication systems, you have the larger audio accessibility for larger events. So there's different types of technology out there. um, we're really trying to make a difference, and we have an upcoming webinar where we're reaching out, and we're going to continue to reach out and work with individual audiology clinics. Like, clearly we can't work with all clinics, but there's a clinic here in Ontario where if we set up audio accessibility through that ear, somebody with their new hearing aid, and if it's Bluetooth compatible, can try that system. And then what the app will do is it will show you who has the system throughout Canada.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's a really nice feature. And so if we get that ear across Canada, um, which we plan on it, and it's not only bed ear. I shouldn't just talk about bed ear because we embrace all technologies, and some are more appropriate for certain spaces than others. Um,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
you've heard of Auracast,
No,
which
I
is
haven't heard of that one.
so Auracast is so when I talk about better using Bluetooth, Auracast is a new Bluetooth platform that's coming out,
Okay.
and it's already available in some technologies. But how it will work is, with Bluetooth now, it's pretty much one-on-one, right? So you're going to stream to your phone, or you're going to stream to your TV, or music, right? With Auracast, it's not one-to-one; it's going to be one to unlimited. So
Ooh.
how that would work is, if you had a new hearing aid with Auracast Bluetooth LE, then, and we're not there yet, but this is the future. So then when the airport has Auracast built into their announcements, as an example, then you would receive that right through to the
That's
hearing.
um,
And right now, there's two hearing aids and one cochlear implant, I believe, that have Auracast already built in. Um, but you need the receiver and then you need the transmitter, right?
right.
And so the televisions have Auracast built into them. Auracast is built in now as a receiving unit on some earbuds already.
Okay.
So they'll be able to do that connection. But what we need to do is we need to get the public spaces to
Right.
have that transmitting component to it. And so I talked about Vetear. They also have an Auracast module that will fit with the older Bluetooth compatibility and then the future so that you're not leaving anybody out. Like you can't just go with the new stuff. People don't buy hearing aid just because there's, a new Bluetooth
Yeah, it's
technology.
not the new cell phone. Yeah, like
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. Exactly.
oh, that's awesome. That's really exciting. And it is, as much as technology kind of scares me in some ways, it's really exciting to see the possibilities of what can change when it comes to communication because of technology. So that's really exciting. And you briefly mentioned earlier on about fire safety and hearing your baby cry and stuff like that. And I wore my hearing aids 24/7 for the first 4 months when my daughter was born because I was so worried about that. But um, how do you find getting that information to people if they didn't necessarily know about your website? Like, are there other places that people could be directed to learn about that? Or um, like, how would people find those products
So,
if they
well,
didn't know to go to wavefrontcenter.com or
that,
.ca rather?
that's a tough one because they are so specialized. And that's kind of unfortunate
Yeah.
because, but I'll share an example where it is becoming more universal design, though. Um, we sell them because we're invested. That's a part of our mandate. That's a part of who we are, um, making sure that people feel safe. And there's not a lot of products out there, um, but there are some. And how fire safety would work in somebody's home is there's devices that will pick up the signal of a fire alarm and they're specifically designed for that, right? There's a T3 and a T4 pattern of audio that comes out of a fire and a carbon monoxide alarm. And this unit picks it up. And then what it does is it like shakes your bed or shakes a pillow, depends on, how profound of a sleeper you are. And then it emits low frequency tones because often it's a higher frequencies and clearly not for everybody, but it's a higher frequencies that people lose. Um, and so therefore it emits a very low tone in order to wake somebody and let them know that there's smoke or
Right.
fire.
Okay. Awesome.
And
Yeah, that's good to know.
and then the
Um,
thing that's come about with fire safety is and you never saw this is an example of how technology is really changing, but now, particularly within Ontario, because I was involved in pushing that through the Ontario Building Code, where all new builds homes will have audible and visual detectors in their homes.
that's great.
So that's
That's
an example of universal design where everybody benefits from it. And it's not a special device that can sometimes be quite costly, right?
yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good point about universal design, though. Like if you're vacuuming or you have your headphones in and you don't have hearing loss and the fire alarm goes off, you're not going to hear it, but you might see that flash. So like that's beneficial to everyone. I think that's
Yeah.
a really great point because I find that's hard sometimes with accessibility is you have to like prove your point as to like why it's needed and it has to benefit not just the people with the disability, but that's uh that's really great. thank you for doing that. That's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
no,
Um,
it was important to it wasn't only me, there was a whole group of us lobbying for years and
yeah.
years and years.
And so you mentioned like the head office is in British Columbia for the Wavefront Centre. So how do people in Ontario or Alberta or wherever find and utilize your resources within their
Uh,
own province?
yeah, so depending on what they're looking for, but um, we visit our website. That's like always a really good place to start. And if it's audio accessibility or accessibility services, we provide those services across Canada. And we're actually embarking on a really exciting program where we are going to be setting up audio accessibility in every single province. And that's going to be a part of where we get community and where we get business together and showcase the success of that, showcase how, community now is engaged, and it's a business case for the venue as well, right? So it's nothing but good, in my opinion. So yes, go to our website. We provide consultation services across Canada. So whether it's a business wanting to know what they can do to improve services, we're available to do that. We we also have, I didn't talk a lot about our other programs that we have, but we do have with our audiology program, we have a program called Lend an Ear. And that's where people can donate their hearing aids. And then what we do is we refurbish them. And then there's testing involved, refurbishing. And then there's also the aftercare for an individual who may not be able to afford a hearing aid. So that's a really great program that we have. And if people want to get involved, that's a way to be involved is to, make use of a hearing aid that they no longer wear. And we also have a research department, and lots of people want to, get involved and make a difference. And there's often, different um, research development programs in place. And that's a really great way for people to be involved as well.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll make sure to include the website and a few additional links in the caption for people to click on. But thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. And I can't wait for more people to discover the Wavefront Center and utilize your services and programs because they are absolutely incredible and very much needed. So thank you so much.
Thank you for doing everything that you do to bring awareness to all of your followers. And I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yes, I'm so excited. The event is in May for people watching in Toronto. I'll put some links below as well for that. So thank you again and
Perfect.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too, April.